Robbie Parker, I assume he's going to come out to the microphones now and make a statement. Looks like the family is there, and they're getting ready to come to the microphone, so we'll listen in. Okay. My name's Robbie Parker.
Hello, this is Pastor Joe Green, head pastor of Antioch Assembly Church located in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, also the founder of the 2019 movement, and I want to share a couple of thoughts with you just to open your eyes to some of the things that's happening. You know, one of the things that we see in the media, we see in entertainment world, we see in the school systems, etc., is the powers that be, the Illuminati, are really pushing their agenda forward. So I'm going to share a couple of things with you. And I always have to try to really think this thing through because of the fact that I don't want to, you know, I don't want to make these videos too long so that you can watch them. But there's a lot of information, and I try to get a lot of information in a reasonable amount of time. So, so excuse me sometimes if it seems like I'm rushing through things, or if I don't go into more detail. I just encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, my Patreon, stay aware of what we're doing, because there's a lot of information out there to share, and I try to get as much of it to you as possible. You have to understand that we're living in the end times, as the Bible talks about, and in the end times that we're living in, the enemy, Lucifer, the devil, the head of the Illuminati, is really speeding up his attacks on us. See, one of the things that I've seen is the enemy has been very clever at convincing people of faith, mainly people that claim to be Christians. He's been very good at convincing them that, you know, just to stay in our carnal minds. That's our natural minds. Focus more on the world that we can see and not focus on spiritual things. Because the Bible says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual powers and wickedness in high places, the ruler of darkness in this age. And so you have to understand who your enemy is and the tactics that the enemy uses. And because most Christians kind of ignore the spiritual realm, they understand the spiritual realm to a certain degree, but I don't think they understand the depth of the spiritual warfare that takes place. Because the enemy, the devil, is very clever, and he's very strategic, and he's very sophisticated in his deceptions and how he pushes his agenda. So I'm going to share a couple of things with you. Back in the 19th century, and in the 19th century, there was a study. It was called the Age of Enlightenment. So they really started to study psychology, and the practice of psychology really became sophisticated. Now, just to let you know, the Age of Enlightenment that took place in Europe, you had these people that were really they were very new age. They were esoteric people. They were people that were into spiritism and things of that nature. And that goes back to the ancient religion of Mystery Babylon. And so Mystery Babylon, that originated in Northeast Africa, had kind of migrated to Europe at this time when they came out of what was called the Dark Ages. So Europe was in the Dark Ages. They came out of it during this time that they called the Age of Enlightenment. But what the Age of Enlightenment basically is just a renewal of the New Age esoteric Mystery Babylon religion that would have been practiced many centuries before that. And so out of the Age of Enlightenment and the Mystery Babylon religions, they start to study psychology. And psychology is basically the study of how the human brain works. And so you had people like Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, you had B.F. Skinner, and those type of people that came from that kind of mindset, that they began to study the human brain and how the human brain could work, how the human brain works, but they didn't do it from a standpoint of just benefiting society, but they began to develop techniques in how to control and manipulate the masses. And so if you follow the Age of Enlightenment and the psychology, the study of psychology, and then how the Illuminati perfected these techniques They mastered the techniques through you know, in America, also in Europe and in Germany. So in Nazi Germany, one of the things that they had was they had what was called the Ministry of Propaganda. And so the Ministry of Propaganda was how they learned to develop techniques by using mass media in order to control and to sway public opinion. And in America, they have perfected that, and they use those techniques a whole lot now in mainstream media, in Hollywood, and music, and different things like that. They're actually using, it's a form of witchcraft, and so they use a form of witchcraft in order to manipulate the masses, mass manipulation, mind control, those type of things. So in Nazi Germany, they did a lot of experiments on people in the concentration camps. They used the Ministry of Propaganda in order to sway public opinion and let them to get people to go to war. If you ever look at the, you know, they got them to go into World War II, Europe and America. Also, they use propaganda and mass media in order to get the people to get fired up to go to war. They use what's called false flags, and so false flag incidences are things that happen. Like, for instance, many people believe Pearl Harbor, that you know, whether it was staged or not, but that they had intel that told them that the Japanese was going to attack Pearl Harbor, but they allowed it to happen so that they can get the United States to go to war to fight on the Allied side, and to you know, fight with Great Britain and against Germany and Japan and those other type of leaders. So that's a technique that they've used. They used that same technique to take us into Vietnam. The Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag where they pretended like Vietnamese people attacked Americans so that they swayed public opinion to get us to go into Vietnam. But it was primarily the Illuminati and the international bankers that wanted us to go there. Many people believe that 9/11, whether you believe 9/11 was staged or not, there was a lot of information, that there was intel that they knew that there was going to be an attack on the World Trade Centers, but they didn't do anything about it. And so once you start to recognize, excuse me, that pattern, you see even this Florida shooting. It is no coincidence that there's so many reports of people that specifically said that they called the FBI and told the FBI that they were alarmed at this guy, that they thought he was going to do something crazy. He had posted things on social media. When you understand that all the red flags were there, that the FBI knew that this guy was kind of crazy and shouldn't have even had weapons, but yet the FBI failed to investigate or to go get the guy. And this is a pattern. It's not a coincidence. And think about, isn't it ironic that the FBI has all this detailed intel on this false Russia story, this fake news with the Russian story, the Russian collaboration with the Trump. They had all this, you know, intel. They had intercepted messages. They tracked people. They had all these records with something that ended up being nothing, but yet they have this very clear warning that this guy was kind of unhinged and he was going to do something crazy, but yet they allowed him to slip through the cracks. And you'll see that story over and over again, that the person slipped through the cracks, you know, and it's not a coincidence. You know, it's intentional. They allow these things to happen because they're practicing these techniques. One of the techniques that they learned through understanding how to manipulate the masses was trauma-based mind control. And so trauma-based mind control is when you expose people to tragic incidences and you touch their emotional buttons, then it's easy to manipulate them. They do that a lot with the African American community. So they exaggerate incidences of racism to prick the emotions of black people, because black people will respond to racism because we understand how racism feels and how upsetting it is. So they use that, they exaggerate incidences of racism in order to manipulate black people, and they have done an excellent job at that, which is why this whole police shooting of black people, they exaggerate that. And the reason I say they exaggerate that is because, you know, back in the 80s, one of my favorite rap groups was a group called Public Enemy, and on the album cover of Public Enemy, they had a picture of a black male, and they had a bullseye on him. And what they said was there was a bullseye or a target of black males in America. And to a certain degree, that's true. If you follow the 2019 movement, I talk about how we've been targeted in many different areas. But the problem is, if we believe that there's a target on black males, and if you look at the statistics, black males have one of the lowest life expectancies of the different demographics. But only 1% of black males get killed by police, less than 1%. 90% of black males get killed by other black males. So if there really is a bullseye, and our desire is to preserve the life of black males, think about how good of a job the media is doing at manipulating black people. Is that we'll march in the streets and we want something major to happen because of a person that gets shot by police, a young black male gets shot by police, but yet we're ignoring the 90% of black males that get killed in America by other black males. So if we really want to preserve life, if black lives really do matter, then we should be more focused on the larger attack on black males than the 1% of police officers that have killed black males. And when you understand statistically that more white people get killed by police than black males do, then maybe we should address, you know, better training for police officers and things like that. So, but of course, because the media is using this trauma-based mind control, they have black people fooled into believing that there is just open season on black males. Let me tell you from personal experience, I have at least 4 or 5 personal friends that I know that lost their sons in their early 20s, and not one of them got killed by a white police officer. All of them got killed by other black males. They all lost their lives with gun violence, and it was all based on other black males killing them. So we have to do a better job of preserving the life of our young black males, but we need to really focus on the real issues and not allow ourselves to be manipulated by the mainstream media. So, you know, this thing called trauma-based mind control is what they use. They always use the black-white paradigm or scenario in order to keep us infighting. So black people are under this false assumption like it's just a huge conspiracy that all white people hate all black people and all black people are under oppressive, you know, oppression of white people. When in reality, it's the sin nature that we all have that causes us, if you look in the black communities, more crimes are committed by blacks against blacks than any other group of people. So there are issues, but we have to focus on the real issue in order to solve the problem. And the real problem, just let me say before I go forward, the real problem is the breakdown of family, is the lack of fathers. That is overwhelmingly statistically a fact that when you have a lack of fathers in the house and unwed pregnancies, that you have much higher percentages of incarceration rates, of school dropouts, of low academic performance, of poverty, and violence and gang related activities. The numbers are like 6 to 1 that you know, and I'm just pulling that off the top of my head, but it's an overwhelming statistical fact that the biggest problem in the black community is the breakdown of the family. So anyway, they're doing this trauma-based mind control. It's being very effective on us. Black people are being manipulated. There was a interview that George Soros did, and many of you, if you saw my videos, who George Soros is. George Soros, back in Nazi Germany, he was a teenager, but his mentor was a Nazi. He's an Ashkenazi Jew from Austria, I'm sorry. And he did a 60 Minutes interview, and in the 60 Minutes interview, he admitted that he helped his Nazi mentor, you know, do bad stuff to other Jews, and he's a Jew himself. And they asked him, this is in 2014 or maybe 2011, I think that in 2011 is when he did the 60 Minutes interview, and they asked him if he felt bad about it. He said no, and this was many years later. He still doesn't feel bad or any regrets for that. So he's a very ruthless person, heartless person, if you will. And George Soros is one person who has paid a lot of money to cause racial unrest. He funds most of the anti-Trump protests in America. He funded the Barack Obama campaign and the Hillary Clinton campaign. He spent like $33 million to stir up riots in Ferguson, Missouri, and other places. He is the person behind Black Lives Matter. He funds Black Lives Matter. He funds Antifa. He's also a white supremacist, if you will, because he's a former Nazi collaborator. And what George Soros said in a interview in 2014 is he wanted to use the black people to stir up racial unrest because black people were more easy to manipulate because of our emotionalism, because we're like low-hanging fruit. They can just stir up some some narrative about racism and we'll respond very easily. And that's par for the course. We're very easily manipulated because of this emotional dysfunction we have in regards to racism. It's like something that we just can't control our emotions when it comes to that. And the reason that bothers me is when people play the race card all the time, when there's real instances of racism, it kind of falls through the cracks because it's like the boy who cried wolf. We cried so much that we don't even see the real racism when it happens. So we have to focus on the real incidences and ignore the fluff, ignore the distraction. So trauma-based mind control is one of the things I wanted to talk about. The mainstream media is something they use. They use Hollywood. Hollywood, for most of you don't know, the A-list actors in Hollywood, at this point, the ones who make all the big bucks are the ones who are part of this Mystery Babylon religion. They have to vow their allegiance to the Baphomet, who's the god of the Illuminati, the Lucifer, if you will. And in order for you to pledge your allegiance to him, you have to go through these rituals. And so that's why pedophilia is so prominent in Hollywood. You have to go through sodomy rituals, or you have to be abused physically and sexually in order to vow your allegiance. And so all these A-list actors are involved in this stuff. In order for you to get to those high levels in Hollywood and get the big contracts, you have to vow your allegiance, because they use Hollywood to push their agenda, promote their agenda. And so that's why you see most movies and television shows now, they're all pushing the same antichrist agenda. They're pushing sexual promiscuity, homosexuality. When you look at the award shows in Hollywood, they're all standing together and they're saying the same things. This whole Me Too movement is all a setup, because what they're doing with the Me Too movement is they're putting the focus on women who have gotten abused, and they're ignoring pedophilia in Hollywood. So pedophilia is an even bigger issue than sexual harassment in Hollywood. But as long as we're focusing on the sexual harassment piece, we're ignoring the fact that these children are getting abused in Hollywood. Most of the Disney kids that you see, and if you notice, if you know anything, and again, this is all going back to trauma-based mind control. One of the things that they learn in order to brainwash people is to use trauma, to use some kind of tragedy. And so in order to go to war, they'll have a bombing, or in order to get gun control laws, they'll allow for a mass shooting, and then they'll use the mass shooting. They'll show you all the pictures of the children crying and everything, and that's supposed to pluck your emotional heartstrings, so that you'll move in the direction they want you to. So when they push their agenda, which is try to take away your liberties, they'll use the emotionalism of a child getting shot, and they believe that we're easily manipulated when those images are shown over and over again. And it's also ironic that when you look at the people in Hollywood as well, or if you look at the people in Washington, D.C., some of these liberal politicians, these Democrats who are really pushing for gun control, all of them have armed guards. If you try to go to Dianne Feinstein's house, or Nancy Pelosi, or some of these other liberals, you can't just walk up to their house and knock on their door. They're very highly secured. You can even go to the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. and just walk in without going through metal detectors and getting patted down. And they have armed guards. So why is it okay for them to be protected by handguns or assault weapons, but yet you as an individual citizen have no right to protect yourself? That's why the Second Amendment was so important, because the Second Amendment allows individuals to own firearms to protect themselves. That's why it's a constitutional right for you to be able to protect your life, your liberty, and your property. So they use that in Hollywood, and Hollywood basically is a type of witchcraft. That's where Hollywood, the name Hollywood, comes from. It's the type of wood that they use, the witches use in order to do their rituals and their spells. And so it's interesting how they put it right there in front of you. And they use manipulation, the movies, the rituals that they do. So when you have like a halftime show with Madonna and Lady Gaga, or when you have you know, the Academy Awards, and the Academy Awards, all of the performers are doing types of witchcraft and rituals and things like that. It's all done to cast a spell on the public. And so again, because most people don't understand spiritual warfare, they don't understand that when you sit there and you put yourself in front of those things, you are actually opening up your subconscious mind to being hypnotized, basically. It's a form of hypnosis. And again, all this stuff stems from the Enlightenment period, if you get a chance to look it up. That they studied that. They studied hypnosis. They studied trauma-based mind control, especially with children. And so these Hollywood actors, when they get these children at a very young age, they abuse them sexually and put trauma on them. And what it does is it opens them up to the splinter their personalities so that they can implant another personality. There's a program that the CIA perfected called MK Ultra. And so when you get a chance, you can look up MK Ultra. MK Ultra was something that the CIA perfected, and they took a lot of their information and the research on how to do MK Ultra from the Nazis, because a lot of the Nazi scientists after World War II actually were taken and brought to America. There was a couple of, it was one called, I think it was called Project Paperclip, and there was another one called Project Mockingbird. And so with Project Paperclip, I think they got a lot of the Nazi scientists and brought them here. The CIA used them to learn their techniques that they learned during World War II. MK Ultra. If you ever see the movie called The Manchurian Candidate, it was a famous movie from back in the days, and they did a remake with Denzel Washington. So if you look that up, that's basically showing you what they do with MK Ultra, how they can implant suggestions in a person and they can trigger them. So a lot of these Hollywood actors are under MK Ultra programming, especially at a child at a young age. The younger the child is, the easier they are to be programmed. And so the reason these children get abused is because they're actually putting them through this programming so that they can be used for their own benefit. And so as they get older, they're just tools for the powers that be, the Illuminati. And again, a lot of this stuff sounds like, man, he's really going off on the deep end. But when you understand the Bible and understand what the Bible says, we shouldn't be surprised by these things. You know, and Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the day of the coming of the Son of Man. And if you look in Genesis 6, when it talks about the days of Noah, it says that men's thoughts were continually wicked, and they did all manner of wicked things, and the earth was filled with violence. So when you see these things happening again, you shouldn't get surprised and understand that this is a pattern that has always happened. When you understand about the sex rituals, the pedophilia and the sodomy and the sexual abuse and all these things that are happening, these aren't new things. The Bible talks about this. It talks about when they, you know, the Mystery Babylon religion and the type of rituals that they did in Sodom and Gomorrah and all these type of places. That's where you know, the same religion, the same Mystery Babylon religion has been repeated throughout the time, because Lucifer is the head of that religion, and Lucifer hasn't changed his techniques. He just repackages them, and so we have to have our eyes open to it. So Hollywood is the tool that they use, and Hollywood is one of the tools that they use, which is why all Hollywood A-list actors have to follow the same script. In the award shows, they all get up and they have this moral superiority that they pretend to have, even though behind the scenes they're all very wicked and they're very perverse people. If you notice, Harvey Weinstein, before he got exposed, they actually called him God. You know, Meryl Streep called him God. And so why is that? Everybody knew how he was. It was just a matter of, it was acceptable until they decided to expose him. And again, the reason they're exposing these people is to take away the focus on the real issues that are the witchcraft that they're doing on the American public, the trauma-based mind control, and the pedophilia that happens in Hollywood, in the mainstream media. If you get to the high levels in all these organizations, you have to take an oath. You have to swear to the Baphomet, and you have to participate in these rituals in order for you to get the fame and fortune and the status that they promise you. If you remember in Luke chapter 4, I believe it is, Jesus, after he gets baptized, the Bible says he was taken into the wilderness and tested of the devil. So if you think about these Hollywood stars, and these, even in professional sports, you know, all these athletes are now speaking out on the same thing. All of them get these big endorsement deals, and all these things. That it's like when Jesus was tempted. So what did the devil do? The Bible says that Jesus was tempted by the devil. The devil showed him all the kingdoms of the earth, and he says, all these have been given to me, I'll give them to you if you worship me. And that's the temptation that happens in Hollywood and in these big endorsement deals these people have. Or if you want to be a high-ranking politician, or if you want to be high in the business world, you have to basically you worship the devil. You surrender to the devil, and when you do that, then you get all the fame and fortune and the promises that the devil gives you. So again, this is not anything new. It's the same pattern. We just have to have our eyes and our ears open. So it's a form of witchcraft that they're doing on you. So don't fall victim to it. Think about, for a second, like I said, with this whole thing with these mass shootings, and my heart goes out to anybody who's lost someone in the mass shooting or any type of acts of violence. And so I pray for their families. I pray for their peace. But more importantly, I want us not to be taken advantage of and not to be manipulated by this form of witchcraft that takes place. One of the things that they're doing, aside with trying to manipulate the masses, but they're corrupting the morals, which is why they're promoting all these anti-Christ, anti-God agendas. And so we're supposed to feel sorry for them, even though they're mocking God, even though people have no time for God in these last and dark days. But yet every time tragedy hits, they're all asking for us to have a prayer vigil. I'd rather witness and teach the message of the gospel to everybody who will listen, and tell them what the Bible says, and to warn people on the front end, than to have these candlelight vigils on the back end after the enemy does what he does. The Bible says that the devil's like a roaring lion looking to whom he may devour. And so we shouldn't be surprised when he goes out and tries to devour. He comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And so the only remedy for that is the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so we who have the Spirit of God and have the Word of God, we have to be diligent and vigilant, and we have to declare, we have to be the watchman on the wall to declare to people the time that we live in, so that they don't get taken advantage of. This has been Pastor Joe Green. Again, I thank you for allowing me to share some of my thoughts and some of my perspectives with you. And again, I pray that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I also pray that you have ears to hear what the Spirit of the Lord is saying. Till next time, I love you. Shalom, peace, and blessings to you. Bye-bye.
Nations. CBS 2's Serene Branson is live at the Staples Center with highlights and backstage coverage we're seeing for the very first time. Serene.
Well, a very, very heavy debatation tonight. We had a very Darrison, but let's go to Terrace and look for the head of the pit.
Skeptics felt there was something terribly wrong with the official story and the way the media reported it, with the way the parents acted. With the way the coroner acted.
The CIA is carrying out mind control on countless numbers of unwitting American victims. And he even went so far as to say the basic methods that they use in this mind control: hypnosis, drugs, and torture.
Three parts policy that they had adopted there. The second one was to find a way of being able to get total control of people's minds. And that would be done by taking hypnotism out of the realm of the occult and introduce it as a new science for the benefit of mankind.
I was an FBI agent for 27.5 years. At the time of my retirement, I was the senior special agent in charge of the FBI Los Angeles Division. I have been qualified in the courts as an expert on cults and satanic ritual abuse. I have information from various sources that judges, law enforcement, prosecutors, attorneys, doctors, and many prominent individuals, including actors, actresses, professional football and baseball players, are involved in these type activities. If you go back 225 or 30 years ago, you have what we call the Illuminati that was established in 1776. And the goals of the Illuminati, this is all very well documented, are to take over the world. One of the best ways of taking over the world is to control people's minds and to take over a country through the control of the minds. So what's happening in America, and based on my research and my interviews with numerous individuals, is that the powers that be, the higher-ups, the people in the Illuminati, are using the satanic cults as a means and as a tool to condition individuals and to make them victims of the mind control, MK Ultra mind control program. There's probably close to 4 million practicing Satanists in the United States alone, based on my intelligence information.
I was used in CIA black budget operations, many of them of a military nature. I was a mind control victim in these same black budget operations, and I was used as a propagandist by the CIA to help bring in the New World Order. I was actually a media person, I still am, radio and TV and print journalism, and basically they set me up through a CIA front company to propagate the New World Order through New Age propaganda. That's about the best way I can say it. And that's a comment I want to make. A lot of this New Age material that we see coming out today, it is an Illuminati ploy to bring in the New World Order. It's sort of a diversionary tactic, part of it. It's a way to get people to be complacent and under mass mind control. And that involves a lot of the trance channeling, all those sorts of things. It's a way to sort of lull people into a false sense of security based on a false spirituality.
Well, it was scary for sure, because tonight students who were in the classroom are telling News 10 that the little girl even tried cutting herself and another student in class.
As frightening as that sounds, some parents are fuming mad, and the school, they say, didn't do more to protect their kids. News 10's Simney Chewin is live at John Sloat Elementary, where it all went down. Simney?
This is a letter that went home with kids today about what happened. It tries to reassure parents and tells them that there were no weapons or dangerous objects involved. But one parent calls that an outright lie. And tonight we talk with kids who were in the classroom at the time, and they give us an eyewitness account of what happened.
So I was scared and I was crying really bad.
Students at John Sloat Elementary describe a day of horror on Thursday when one of their classmates, a 5th grade girl, started shouting she was part of the Illuminati and threatened to kill other students.
She said she wanted to sell her soul to the devil, and then she said she'll kill everybody. Everybody just started crying because they were scared that they were going to die that day.
At one point, students say she grabbed a pair of scissors.
Yeah, I see her trying to cut herself and put and like draw blood, but then she got up and tried to stab another girl that was a seat away from her.
Students say she also drew Illuminati symbols like this one and wrote 666 in the bathroom. Students say her outburst went on for at least an hour, with the teacher only telling them to ignore the girl.
He thought she was just trying to get attention.
When they told the teacher about what was going on,
Antonio Farinas contacted News 10 because he thinks the school should have notified him immediately.
To not be notified about it all day until 6:30 at night last night, that was real upsetting, because when I picked up my kids from school, they were in tears.
Some parents we spoke with think the school could have done more to protect the kids in class and should have taken the girl out of class much sooner.
With all the stuff that's been going on with schools, what does it take for a child to show you that there's something wrong, for her to actually follow through with what she says she's going to do?
They should have stepped it like right away and not let her scare them more, you know?
I think it's a privilege to call yourself a Scientologist, and it's something that you have to earn. And because a Scientologist does, he or she has the ability to create new and better realities and improve conditions. Being a Scientologist, you look at someone and you know absolutely that you can help them. Being a Scientologist, when you drive past an accident, it's not like anyone else. As you drive past, you know you have to do something about it because you know you're the only one that can really help. I do what I can, and I do it the way I do everything. There's nothing part of the way for me. It's just...
No, I know what he's doing. He's processing. He's trying to figure out what he is going to tell, what he isn't going to tell. I've never seen you like that. I know. We've never seen you behave this way before.
I know.
Have you ever felt this way before? You're gone. You are gone.
No, but I fly. I'm a pilot, and I was one time we were flying to Colorado, and I was flying this airplane that we had to go on oxygen, and the winds were better at a higher altitude, so we climbed up, and I realized that we couldn't stay at that altitude if on oxygen. I had to descend because I didn't have enough oxygen. So I had a passenger in the back, so we figured out, me and the co-pilot, that if we turned the oxygen off in the back guy, that we could make it at this altitude. So it wasn't dangerous or anything,
Now, what happened when you turned his oxygen off?
He was very quiet. He felt... He fell asleep. He fell asleep. He slept the whole way.
Well... But
he's the kind of guy you wanted to have him sleep the whole way. It's like just.
But honestly, looking at it from another direction, isn't that attempted manslaughter? You just turn a guy's oxygen off. You're lucky you're not doing time, for the love of God.
He woke up.
He did wake up, yeah.
When we were landing on descent, he. My hands are... He said, my hands... My hands are your all's hands. He said, my hands are tingling. I slept the whole... I said, must have been the way I was laying. I said, yeah, must have been the way.
Oh, my God. Wasn't getting enough oxygen to his brains. Oh, my God.
I know.
Well, it's funny now.
It's funny now.
Yow.
No, it wasn't such a high altitude that it would have,
sure,
caused death or anything.
That's just the occasional numbness of extremities.
Oh, do you have a Kleenex in my eyes?
We'll get you. The thing there. All right, we'll take a break. We'll be right back with Tom Cruise, everybody.
Corey Feldman has no idea what it's like not to be famous. He was just 3 years old in this McDonald's commercial.
McDonald's gift certificates. I literally was famous before I knew my own name.
His roles defined the 80s. Goonies.
This was my dream, my wish.
Stand By Me.
You call my dad a loony again, and I'll kill you.
License to Drive.
The only difference between you and that greaseball is that he has a license and you don't.
Films that propelled him into the spotlight for his entire youth. But being famous so young, he says, caused serious damage to him and his friends.
Do you feel like you missed out on a normal childhood?
What childhood? I don't know what that means.
A lost childhood and a loss of innocence. He blames the adults, not just those looking to profit from charming children, but also some with far more sinister motives.
I can tell you that the #1 problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh yeah. Not in the same way. It's all done under the radar.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
And it's widespread?
Oh yeah. I was surrounded by them when I was 14 years old. Surrounded. Literally. Didn't even know it. It wasn't until I was old enough to realize what they were and what they wanted and what they were about and the types of people that were surrounding me till I went, oh my God, they were everywhere like vultures.
Vultures who Feldman says abused him and his best friend, the late child actor Corey Haim, his co-star in The Lost Boys.
Well, what happens if my mom is dating the head vampire?
Feldman says the trauma of that pedophilia contributed to Haim's death.
There's one person to blame in the death of Corey Haim, and that person happens to be a Hollywood mogul. And that person needs to be exposed, but unfortunately I can't be the one to do it. But the person that knows who did it and knows who he is watching right now, I guarantee you. Yeah.
Intriguing.
Yeah. There was a circle of older men that surrounded themselves around this group of kids. And they all had either their own power or connections to great power in the entertainment industry.
Feldman won't name names. And he admits his friend had a struggle with addiction, which he says was a mechanism to cope with his demons.
It was a symptom.
It was a symptom, correct.
Are we in it?
In 2008, the two Coreys confronted each other on their reality show about the dark past they shared.
You let me get around in my life, man, raped, so to speak, when I was about 14 and a half, and I'm saying this right now. What'd you do, man, when you saw that going down when I was 14 to me? What'd you do? You knew about it.
You want to talk about the truth? Okay, well then let's talk about the truth. I was being molested at the same time by somebody else. What'd you do? You know, there's a lot of good people in this industry, but there's also a lot of really, really sick, corrupt people in this industry. And there are people in this industry who have gotten away with it for so long that they feel they're above the law. And that's got to change. That's got to stop.
If we start at the back of the brain, we've switched off my visual cortex, so made me unable to see things. If we move a little bit forward in the brain, we've interfered with people's ability and my ability to see faces. A little bit further forward, we've interfered with the ability to perform actions. Start moving your finger.
Quite odd.
It's not your finger anymore.
It's not my finger anymore.
We've interfered with the ability to compute with numbers.
6, 7, 8.
Okay.
Ooh, yeah. Yes.
We've interfered with the ability to speak.
Land the bridges, land the bridge, land the bridges falling down.
You think of something you can do, and we've basically interfered with it with this machine.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
So what's the problem?
I don't know.
CBS 2's Serene Branson is live at the Staples Center with highlights and backstage coverage we're seeing for the very first time. Serene.
Well, a very, very heavy debatation tonight. We had a very Darrison fight. Let's go to Terrace Chase for the head of the pit.
From our Rock County Bureau at the Janesville Gazette. Thanks, Margot. Well, Wisconsin has officially joined 25 other states in a lawsuit against President Obama's health care reform law. Attorney General J.B. Van Hollen says Wisconsin is the latest state, including Iowa, Kansas, Maine, Ohio, and Wyoming, to join Florida's suit. The states claiming the Exorcist, Sa Unchisracho, and Pele Bringritz by health urgent.
Now, Defense Minister McLeod did confirm today that more than 54 18 fighter jets are spending about as much as 20 and ready to assist the 100 deployed over the amount needed. Now, it did depend on how the NOLAN remerges RN, while the university or the UN mission as whole received support from all batteries in the hues of the garbins of today. Excuse me. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Mark McAllister from Japan tonight. Newly released video.
Nedověděli jsme se nic, dá se tedy předpokládat, že odpoledne pravděpodobně budeme úspěšnější. A teď se pojďme podívat na to, co přinesly poslední hodiny na české politické scéně.
I'm sorry. I was in a trance.
Yeah, watch the drill there. I know. Were you looking at the rings or me? I couldn't tell.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh. Okay.
Yeah, it's a difficult title. It's a good day to die.
But I suppose it's because you had kind of a good day, and if you would have died, well, so be it. Is that it?
That's right. That's a good explanation. Have a sandwich, and let's go shopping.
Yeah.
Die Hard.
That would have been your chosen title.
Well, it's about, it makes about as much sense. A good, or maybe there is a good day to die hard.
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
You've had a year that would test a lot of people. Illness in the family. A breakup. This spasm of publicity about what happened from Mexico to London.
It was pretty rough. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Ah, weird. Hello. Oh my goodness. Hello. Ew. Strong Brittany. Yeah, it was a weird time. Ew. I'm embarrassed. Can we stop?
We begin with South Carolina. Hello, South Carolina, please pick out the name of a judge. Thank you. Judge number 5, Amy Teagarden.
Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future for our children.
Thank you very much, South Carolina.
I'm Savannah Guthrie alongside Matt Lauer and Al Roker. Will someone do the junior high hug dance? It's like this. You gotta make it real awkward.
That's exactly how you have to have a certain amount of distance between the bodies in junior high.
Yes, like they say in Catholic school, leave room for the Holy Ghost. Anyway, there is a lot of memories today, actually. It's a big day in music history.
35 years ago today, Elvis Presley passed away, the king of rock and roll. And as Mark Cohn says in his great song, Walking in Memphis, there's a pretty little thing waiting for the king down in the...
Roman is a crazy boy who lives in me, and he says the things that I don't want to say. He was born, you know, just a few months ago. I think he was born out of rage. He was conceived in rage. So he bashes everyone. He threatens to beat people, and he's violent.
That must be nice to have like an ignorant loudmouth who you can just sort of blame every...
He wants to be blamed. I don't want to blame him. I ask him to leave, but he can't. He's here for a reason. People have brought him out. People conjured him up. Now he won't leave.
I know you said there'll be a time for politics, but you've also said you wanted to change the tone of Washington. Howard Dean recently seemed to muse aloud whether you had advanced knowledge of 9/11. Do you agree or disagree with the RNC that this kind of rhetoric borders on political hate speech?
Yeah. Look, there's time for politics. And, you know, it's time for politics. And it's an absurd insinuation.
In that case, sir, can I follow up on something unrelated?
In covertly recorded off-air transmissions from the Bush-Clinton presidential election campaign in the 1990s, we can see that Bill Clinton was nothing more than a puppet to the puppet masters which placed him in the White House. Bill Clinton's demeanor seems to be similar to a person who is under a hypnotic trance.
I love him. Can we do any more? Let me do some more. Let me do some more. I'm going to do some more final touches. We done all Colorado today.
Lampe, Missouri was a place where I heard George Bush and Bill Clinton talking. Where, from the point of view I had, they certainly were friends, and they didn't recognize any party lines between them. That's something for the, you know, a smoke and mirrors illusion for the public. It's not something they adhere to because they had exactly the same agenda, and that was for bringing in this new world order. I heard George Bush talking at that time. He was talking to Bill Clinton, and I've since photographically recorded it and wrote it verbatim in our book, that when the American people became disillusioned with Republicans leading them into the New World Order, that Bill Clinton, as a Democrat, was going to be put into the office of president. This was decided in 1984. Actually, I'd heard about it even prior to that, but that, as of 1984, they were already discussing it as an absolute fact.
So I wanted to finish the thought here. And for one break, we have to hit live. It's an around the world break. Hard to believe we're being watched in 151 countries. Crazy. Ted Turner changed the world. I'm a big fan of yours. He would serve you, Captain. You know what I mean? I don't know. Miss Fries, Miss Rebby, what's he got left in life to gain? After you're elected, think about it. No dope. That's for sure. Great guy to work for, too.
Remember that every single man, woman, and child in the state of South Carolina awakens to a freer, safer world because of George Bush. I would remind people that every single morning we all awaken to a safer, freer world because of George Bush. And Nicole, I would remind you and the people of Florence that all of us awaken every single day to a freer, safer world because of George Bush. They themselves awaken every single day to a freer, safer world because of George Bush.
Official U.S. policy has consistently regarded Tibet as a part of China, although an autonomous region within China. We have no evidence at this point that the Chinese government is engaged in any policy or in any actions aimed at wiping out the Tibetans, or in short, reflecting a policy of genocide either against the Tibetan people themselves or against their culture.
At one point in this interview, we see that his mind control programming breaks down.
What about self-determination for Tibetans?